Alright guys, real quick, I'm making this video not to show you how to repair these IPC clusters, but just to show you a couple things that I run into when repairing these that I haven't really seen many people address, or at least not in a way that's very feasible. And I just like to take the time to show you some tips and hints. I have a board here. This is a board that's bad. It's just, I mean, it's dead software wise. I probably could revive it if I send it out to have somebody take out the EEPROM chip and rewrite it, but to me, it's not worth it. What they're gonna charge me to do that, I could go out and buy a new board for like a third of the price. Plus, I always have some spares, so it's not a big deal. But real quick, before I start this video, just want to walk through you with the stuff that I use. So this right here, little solder sucker, it's like $5. Buy it on Amazon, eBay, anywhere that cheap electronic parts are sold. This little solder sucker works by like putting a plunger in and then putting in where you're soldering and sucking it up. Works pretty dang good. They do break easily, so I recommend you buy 2 of them. They usually seem to last me about 3 or 4 jobs, and then you know, the threads here get messed up, and then it starts splitting on its own, and they're not meant to last forever. This solder, I got this at Fry's. There's a diameter right there. Always get rosin core. I can't even think of a place that doesn't sell rosin core. I haven't found any other kind of solder, not that I would want to, but it's pretty thin stuff. It's pretty thin. Works perfect for these boards right here. You can use thicker stuff. I used it. I just recommend you use something thinner. It's a lot easier. And this is a soldering iron that I use. TMC. See, there's a model number right there. I've had this thing, at least 12 years. Bought it on eBay. Actually, for a long time, it was in my backyard, like literally in the rain, and it still works, and it works pretty dang good. It's got an adjustable temp gauge on here, and I think when I bought it, I paid like 40 or 50 bucks. I used to use it for fixing Xboxes, a lot of other little projects that I had when I was a teenager. Works really well. Really recommend it. I mean, like I said, I've abused the heck out of this thing, and it's 12 years old, and it still works. It works great. It's got little interchangeable tips. Like I said, you can use the cheap, you know, $5 soldering iron also, but it's a little bit harder. But it can be done. Just want to show you what I'm using. And then I do recommend you get some tape, some electrical tape, and then I also recommend you get some clear Scotch tape that I don't have pictured here. And the reason I don't have a picture here is I'm not gonna show you why I need it. It's for the needles to mark down where they were before, and also a Sharpie to mark where it was before. I'm not gonna go through those steps. Those steps there's plenty of them on YouTube. This video is not gonna be on how to repair these. It's gonna be just some tips on the issues that I run into that should help you. And the first thing I'm gonna show you is these right here. Right here, I've already touched some of these up. They're not good. Trust me, they're not good solders. Alright, I mean, they don't look very pretty. You can tell the board got pretty hot. I just used it to practice on. Like I said, it's a messed up board. But these right here, when they're loose, sometimes you'll see this dash go. The lights go in and out. Sometimes these will come on. Sometimes they won't. It's got a bunch of them everywhere. Now, a lot of times you look at them, they're like, oh, they're good. You know, I kind of wiggle them around and they're not coming loose. Well, the first tip I want to give you is that to check these, you want to grab a little pocket screwdriver or something, and you want to give them a little bit of pressure. All right? Give them a little bit of pressure. A lot of times they won't appear bad. It's not until you give them a little bit of pressure that you could tell that they're bad. And not only that, if they're crooked, like these are all pretty straight, besides the ones that, you know, got touched up, obviously. But these right here are pretty straight. If they're crooked, that means that they have a cold solder joint. Okay, even if they look like they're good, if they're crooked, that means that they got unsoldered and they got resoldered on their own, which means you should definitely touch them up. Let me see. So this one looks a little bit crooked. Let me see if I can get it to. No, it's good. Alright, so these all look pretty straight. Yeah, these all look pretty dang straight. Yeah, you want to give them a little push, alright? And then also, one tip for when soldering these, alright? Whenever you solder these, what happens is, let's say for instance that you find one that's loose right here, right? And then you're going to touch the solder right here on top. You go to solder it, you put your iron on there, then when you pull up, boom, you pull up the chip with it. That's why I recommend you put some electrical tape along the side that you're not soldering, alright? And I'm going to show you what that looks like real quick. So I'm going to pause this video because I'm doing this I don't have a stand on me right now. And I'm going to put some tape on there to show you what it looks like. So like that, you got some electrical tape, you put this here, and then what you're going to do is you're going to touch up this side right here, you're going to solder it, boom, fix that, fix that, fix that. And then once you're done with that side, you're going to take off the tape. And then you don't need to put the tape on there again on the top side because those already have a good solder joint. And then you're going to solder the bottom side, because what happens is that a lot of times when you go to solder this point and this place is the top one's not secured, or vice versa, you pull the chip with you when you pull a soldering iron out, and then you could damage the chip, or you could burn it. You could literally burn it, and it's a big hassle, and it's, you know, it could cause some damage. I'm not even sure we could find these things at, you know, if you needed to. I mean, I'm sure you could find them somewhere, but why even go through the trouble? Put some tape on there when you're soldering them. Keep them still. Electrical tape is very cheap. I mean, I got some thin tape, but you could always cut a piece of tape in half and probably feel a little bit better. But yeah, that's a good idea to do that. But one thing I haven't seen is somebody really show you how to remove the stepper motors without damaging the board. Now, these boards are pretty easy to damage, and usually it happens because somebody uses too hot of a soldering iron, or either they hold the iron for too long. But if you're gonna do this repair, what I recommend is to go out to like Amazon or eBay and you buy one of these little solder suckers. And they're nothing crazy expensive. They're about like $5. I do recommend you buy 2 of them because they do break pretty easily. The way they work is you hold this end over where you're gonna solder, you heat it up, and then you keep this plunged down, and when you're ready to suck, you just press this button and it sucks it right up. So I'm gonna show you real quick how that works. So just hold it right over and boom, there you go. You see that hole right there? That's a good clean desolder. You could try going over it again just to make sure you got all of it out. I do recommend you do it twice. It doesn't take very long, so you just hold it on there and suck. There you go. Do that to all 4 of them and it'll come out a lot easier. Now you could just try soldering it, like holding the iron right here and then just kind of shaking it off and keep going back and forth and shake it off, and you'll be there forever. And just to show you real quick how fast and easy this is, using nothing but a cheap Amazon solder sucker, I'm going to do one of these in front of your eyes. So these are already soldered on there from the factory. These are factory solder joints. And see, I got my plunger set in, got my soldering iron, hold it. I'm a little shaky. Sorry, I've had a lot of coffee and no food. right there. Comes right out. Boom, simple. Alright, here's another tip. This board is damaged, so I don't care about it. It actually breaks software wise, so there's no way to recover for it, or at least no way that it's worth investing worth for me investing in it. So one common thing I see is people using too hot of a soldering iron, and when they go to desolder these or they go to solder them, they damage the board. And what that means is that you could never get a good connection on the solder joints here, and the solder never sticks. So what I have been able to do is, say for instance that this connection here is damaged. Let me get this. Right here is damaged. What I've been able to do is get some electrical wire or a long piece of solder, and instead of trying to join it right here, I go right here. And that is one way to repair the board once it's been damaged. So that is the last resort. Don't do that if your board is still good, because then you could cause damage also. So I'm gonna see if I don't have any spare wire, but I'm gonna see if I could do it without any spare wire to bridge that gap. So ideally I should be able to do like this. Boom, good connection. My board's a little, my iron's a little hot, but I really don't care because this board's already bad. But let's say I couldn't do it. What I would do is try to see, if this board wasn't already damaged, I'd probably damage it right there because my soldering iron's too hot. So unfortunately I don't have any wire to show you how it operates. I'm sorry, how to do that operation. But basically what you want to do is pretend this little this bit of solder is a wire. You want to add it right here. Let me see if I can zoom in. Right there. So I would just put this piece of wire right here, and then I would add solder to it and make them touch from here to here. So it helps to just get a couple strands of speaker wire. It doesn't take much. But yeah, that is your last resort. And I've been able to recover a lot of clusters that people said they can't repair by doing that. I've also learned that by first messing up I think it was like the second cluster that I ever did. But that just serves as a reminder to remember to keep your soldering iron on a lower temperature whenever you're working on this. You know, patience is a virtue. Usually what I do is I keep it at a pretty hot temperature whenever I'm desoldering, and whenever I'm soldering I keep it at a lower temperature. So yeah. Alright, so one more tip. Before you install this onto the vehicle, this is how I calibrate the gauges. So you see here, they're gonna have a little bit of resistance once you get to a certain point. So they can spin like this easily. It's gonna get to the point where you're gonna feel a little bit of resistance, and boom, that's where you stop. So I actually set them about there, a little bit below the mark, but that's not entirely accurate. So I'll show you how I calibrate them once I'm pretty much done. So first I'll just start by putting them there. And the thing is too, is that let's say for instance you let's say that you could turn this, I already feel resistance, right? But let's say when you install it, you're done, and you come down to right here, and that's where you feel resistance. Then you just keep pushing it. You force it a little bit. And I've never damaged any of them doing this. That's how I always do it. And that's going to be a resting point. So I do it before I install it on the vehicle, but that's just to get them a little bit close. That is not an accurate way of doing it, but I'll show you how I finish it off. Alright, so right now I have it mounted on the vehicle, keys off. So I have it mounted on there. The cover is not on there, just the back piece, and you want the back piece installed because that helps get the overlay, helps it center it. So you want to make sure you have the back piece installed. But I have this piece off right here. This is my cluster. This is the one that I'm fixing right now. So I have it off. Turn off the key. Sorry, turn on the key. And then I turn off the key again. So now I set him back to where I want him to. And I found to always be just below the mark. That's down on that one too far. That's good. Now, by far the hardest one to calibrate is the temperature one. Let me take the key out. All right, it's the temperature one. That one's always a pain to calibrate. I don't know why. It's always a pain to calibrate. And I'm letting you know right now that the temperature gauge on these Chevy trucks is completely off. First of all, if you have a Tech 2 or a good scan tool, you can even see that the IPC commands it at a lower temperature than what the actual engine temperature is. So if your car's at 210 degrees, it'll tell it to display 200. And that's why it has an actual and a displayed value. So the way I calibrate these is that obviously when it's cool, it's at 0. And at operating temperature, you want it at the mark right below the 210. That's what I found these vehicles actually operated at. So basically, once it's fully warm and your car's not overheating, and you can verify on a scan tool, you don't even need a fancy scan tool. You can use like a generic code reader. Those will display the actual engine coolant temperature sensor. You want that to be around 210, so anywhere like 205 to 210, and that should be right below the 210 mark. So I'll cycle the key one more time. I know some of these look like they're not right below the mark, but they are. It's just the angle of the camera. So put it in there, cycle the key. And my car is a little bit warmed up right now, so that's why it goes up a little bit. See, 0, 0. Start the car up. Jumps up. And this could be a little bit lower. Just a tad. You gotta remember that these IPCs were never really accurate. They would even brand new from the factory. And when I first started doing these and I was calibrating them, I used to spend, hours with a scan tool comparing displayed data versus actual data, and then trying to get it dialed in. And let's say, for instance, that I had it dialed in at 60 miles per hour. I would have somebody drive while I literally reach over and adjust the needle to exactly 60. And then I noticed that at 20 miles per hour, it'll be off. And same thing for the oil pressure and for the fuel gauge and everything. They're all completely inaccurate. I would say the most accurate gauge is going to be the RPM and the fuel gauge. But everything else, especially that little turd right there, is completely inaccurate. So don't kill yourself trying to get it completely accurate. Just get it to where you know is operating correctly. And what I mean by that is that I know, for instance, that this truck, when it's fully warmed up and it's not overheating and it's not acting up, if the thermostat's working, it's going to be right below the 210 mark. And that's where I set it. So what I recommend is that before you do this, if you can, either note down the cold settings and then the warm settings, and calibrate it to those values. And that's going to be your most accurate method of calibrating these clusters. Maybe there's some guys out there that rebuild these clusters a lot more frequently than I do, and they have a better way of doing it. But I've also received these clusters from, like, let's say Dorman or even GM, or even like some of these eBay rebuilders, and they're rarely ever accurate. And I think it's because they just do it without a vehicle there, so they just kind of guess at what it should be, and most people assume that it's accurate, and they never complain about it because it never really causes an issue. They just know that when it's past the middle mark, their vehicle's overheating. So like right now it's at 210. So even though in this video it looks like it's overheating, it's not. It's just the angle of the camera. But see, there you go. That's around 210. So I know I'm a little bit above. So I'm gonna turn it back just a little bit because I know my truck and I know it's not past 210 right now. So that's usually where I want to have it, right there. That's around normal operating temperature. So I'll let it keep running, make sure that it's fully warmed up, and that's why I'll calibrate it too. And this cluster is actually going off to somebody else. I'm going to put it on OfferUp or Craigslist or something like that because it's a spare cluster. I just got a little bored and I wanted something to do, so I fixed it. But yeah, if anybody else has a better way of calibrating these, or if they want to dispute the way that I'm calibrating it, you know, leave a comment. I'd love to hear how you're doing it and why your way is accurate. In fact, on my personal car, I have the temperature running a little bit higher than what it normally is because it's more accurate. So when it's actually running around 212 on a stock car, it'll say is running like where it's at right now. But I actually have it displaying to where it's a little bit more accurate, and it'll be at 210 because I do want to take this truck to more heavy duty environments, and I want to be sure. So that's why if you look at mine, well, I unplugged it with the key on, but normally my temperature sits a little bit past the 160 whenever the key's off, and that's because even though it's inaccurate when it's cold, it's far more accurate once it's warmed up. So I don't recommend that for most people. I'm just picky, and it's my own car, and I don't care. I don't care about it looking kind of goofy. I care about it being more accurate once it's warmed up. But yeah, this cluster right here, it's good. I do have a little bit of fast idle right now. That's why it's a little high. So let me turn off the key and see where they set. I don't like this one. Let me turn it back a little bit. RPM needs to go down a little bit also. I guess it wasn't that accurate. But yeah, it takes a couple tries, man. You just gotta play around with it. It's tedious. And honestly, this one seems to be giving me more trouble than I usually get. Usually I get them around the first, second try. So. Like I said, these gauges look a little bit off, but they're not. It's just kind of the angle of the video. There you go. It's pretty dead set now. This is usually how mine rides on my personal truck, but since this is not gonna be my personal truck, I wanted to display the way the OEM does, so I'll turn it back a little bit.